Joining myself today, I've got Call of Duty analyst and lead CWL observer Quentin, aka Paradox. Q, how has Columbus been treating you so far?
Oh, it's great. I mean, last year, this year, I really do enjoy being here, although I was born in Michigan, so like the whole like Michigan Ohio State thing is kind of weird, but other than that, yeah, I like being here. It's awesome.
How's everyone with Chance? Because we were on with him last week, kind of talking. You remember, like kind of during the calls and stuff, he'd like yell over to you, and you guys would be talking. How's that kind of been a little bit after your guys' history together?
I mean, I've known Chance for, oh, geez, how long has it been now? Like
Since like
4
AW,
years or
right?
something like that? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while, so yeah, I have no problems. Like Chance and I are normally hanging out like at events or during Pro League last year, so it's not really different.
Yeah, we
I
won't
like
talk
it.
about Chance on stream. We'll talk about him, after the broadcast is over, after the video is over. But let's start from the bottom, right? Let's talk about Division A. The first 2 weeks have concluded, and I want to talk about the team who's, like I said, started from the bottom. Like Evil Geniuses finally managed to get a victory yesterday, beating Reciprocity 3-1, despite in game number 1 on Seaside Hardpoint being down 143-21. I think Facento started off 1-14. And EG somehow managed to bring it back, which would later improve their record from 0-6 now to 1-6. Paradox, did that win prove enough to you that this team should stay together?
Uh, I don't know about stay together. I feel like they're gonna be in it for like the long haul. I mean, they do have talent on that team. There were some little mistakes that they were making like throughout the week, and it finally sort of came together in that series versus Rec. I don't know if they're going to stay together. I think they are committed to it, but I wouldn't be surprised if I ever see a roster change from EG.
Right, because a lot of people have to think about, like, the next time they're going to play, it's going to be a while, because the roster change period, I believe, starts March 1st. Fort Worth is March 17th, and I think their next league match isn't until March 25th. So they have quite a bit of time to kind of work out a few things, or maybe even think about adding some new players. But from what you got to watch from them, after obviously being, observing them and kind of seeing how their play worked, etc., what really was the issue for this team? Was it simply just a slaying problem, or was it the way that they maybe communicated on stage? What was it from your perspective?
I feel like we saw a little bit of everything throughout the week, right? Like it would seem like they had really good strategy going into the game, but somewhere in that strategy gets lost, and that entire sort of train as a team just derails, right? We also saw some communication issues, whether it's like I'm sorry, fella, but the collab with the Annihilator, that was really something that shouldn't have happened, and it looked like a communication issue because you saw like two players starting to back up. Of course, the Tempest was out on the other side. It's a difficult situation, but those are situations where you need that sort of communication and teamwork flowing to make sure something like that doesn't happen. And sometimes those little mistakes can cost you a map, and that's sort of what we saw over and over for this team.
And more on a positive note, let's talk about Midnight, right? Because despite being on a 2-game losing streak to Reciprocity and Luminosity, which was a dominant 3-0 by LG, they finally take down the undefeated GenG team. Like out of nowhere, these guys, despite the questions kind of coming around them, as they, like I said, did go on that 2-game losing streak, they take down the best team in the division. What do you think about this, Paradox? Like, to be down the way that they were and to bring it back like that, what did that win say about this team?
I think that showed that they are actually a team. Like, if you weren't sold on Midnight by now, after that, you should 100% be, because if they didn't do that, what would the question be going into Fort Worth, into the rest of the year? It was like, can this team actually bounce back after they lose? Like, if they just go out and lose like that, like, it would sort of bring up all these questions about their character. I think Midnight doing what they did this week to close out the first 2 weeks was a statement, like 100%. Like, no, we're not going to slide and tumble all the way down. We are here to play.
Yeah. I think it was big for their confidence, too. Like, you talk about, like, whenever a team loses, and I think me and Max were actually kind of talking about this, Odd Slice with Double Tap. Me and him were kind of going back and forth, and he actually expected Midnight to lose to LG, just the day prior. And I was like, well, I mean, to be honest, like, let's look at this, right? Midnight barely loses to Reciprocity. They lose, I think, 2 round 11s. They lose 1 round in control to be knocked out, essentially, from that series. And so moving forward, I was thinking, okay, they're going to be fine versus LG. And then LG just starts this storm, and then I'm thinking, okay, well, now they're going to be facing off GenG. This shouldn't even be a series, yet they take out the best team in the division, at least based off record. I know people could argue, well, now Luminosity's up there. Has Optic Gaming been improving enough? But still, I was surprised though, and I think I want to ask you too about this regarding Fort Worth. What's a realistic expectation for this team coming into Fort Worth? Because we have to consider that they never, as this team, has never played on a major open LAN together. With all those things considered, how do you think they'll do at their first, kind of official tournament, with each other?
I hope they do well. That being said, I don't know, because all these players have been building up, like playing in those environments for years at this point. Yes, we've seen players do it before. That's the first sort of environment they come into, they thrive. I think that actually might be the case for Midnight, but I'm sort of like, I want to see it first. I want to see how they're feeling in that environment going into that, because for some teams it can push them to the sky, and I actually hope that's the case for Midnight.
Yeah, me too. I think that they've got a really solid core around them, and I think, like you said, that win versus GenG really kind of solidified things. It was like, yeah, that was legitimate. That run that we had actually is something to kind of keep in mind moving forward. Now, we saw a phenomenal performance from the team that they actually beat yesterday. GenG, to kick things off, they finished these 2 weeks with a 6-1 record. Super impressive, Q. Talk to me about GenG and what makes this team work so well. Obviously, you're the one who's spectating them. You especially get to see them in Search and Destroy, which has been their main game mode. What works for this team? Like, what is the reason? How are they seeing so much success considering that they are a primarily Search and Destroy based squad?
It's their communication and their teamwork. Like 100%. Like, look at the way they start to develop plays on the map. You can tell, and even when we go to like the listed ends and everything, the line of communication is going, and they're starting to respect each other. I know there was a moment it's like, wait for my stun, wait for my stun, wait for my stun, please. So like, okay, so they're getting out the necessary information, and they're respecting each other's play calls. Because yes, you will have an in-game leader, but there will be some times where someone else has to call a shot in a situation, and they're respecting each other on that. They're following each other up. They have faith in each other, and I think that's something that is, one, amazing. Two, you have amazing S&D players on your team, so of course that game mode is going to be something that you can really work with, and you can take all of those things into control, which has really been an awesome game mode for them as well, at least to watch. But that team as a whole, I like what I see right now. My only thing is, when it comes to event time, what are they going to do?
That's true. It's a big question to ask. But, I mean, I think when you talk about Search and Destroy, I think they have 4 of the top overall S&D KDs. They have 4 players out of the top 5, and all 5 in the top 11. It definitely says a lot. Now, the biggest question mark I have as of this moment, and especially considering the way that we saw the final match conclude, is surrounding Luminosity. They start off the league, I think it was 0-4, yet turned things around by beating Evil Geniuses. They 3-0 Midnight, and they beat Optic Gaming last night in a Game 5, Round 11. Definitely one of my favorite overall series of the entire 2 weeks. What do you think could have caused something like this? I mean, we were all thinking this team is done. I think there was a few people tweeting out, this is the final straw. Like, this is what's going to ruin this team. And now they start to perform back to the way that most expected them to originally play. What should we kind of credit this resurgence to?
I think it's honestly a confidence thing. Like, the way they started the week, you're just losing game after game, some of them being pretty close as well. It's, as soon as they got the first win, you saw everything started to really get rolling. They're sort of pushed against the wall. They answered back. My thing is, what's going to be the future of this team, right? We're going into the roster transfer period, like not that long. Then you're going straight into an event. Is this a good time where they're starting to gain some momentum? Yes. Is it too late? I have absolutely no idea, because the team could blow up. There might be internal issues. I don't know, man. I just hope something happens with this team. If it's staying with this current roster, getting better, and then showing like what your actual ceiling is, hey, I'm all for it. That'd be a good story.
Now, given the circumstances, I'm going to put you in the GM position. If you're the GM of Luminosity Gaming at this point, you see the way that the roster started to improve. Despite going 0-4, they go on a 3-game winning streak, taking down some of the Titan teams in this division. Paradox, do you make a change?
As of right now,
it's a hard one, I know.
Yeah. I can't get the cop-out answer. I was going to say, like, I would stick with the roster, but then just play, like, the transfer period.
So this is my thing with Luminosity as of this moment. It's like they have a slow start to Vegas, then they start to get a resurgence to top 4. Then we see another dip right at the beginning. For me, it's just like, I think this team could have future inconsistencies. And you have to consider as well, they beat Optic in a Game 5, Round 11. And they're playing with a sub. So your expectations of winning a tournament are still definitely not there because you just beat a team that does have a sub. Granted, obviously Optic with Zuma is still one of the best teams in the division. But can you imagine once they get the best player, what's considered to be the best player in the world, back in that team? I think for LG, I don't know if Formal and Co. is happy with kind of still playing second fiddle to what could be a more dominant OG team to come. But in your opinion, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if this team tries to stay together, but to me, I think that they have to look at least maybe one change. If they were considering making 2, if not 3 roster changes, I think that somewhat gets at least a little bit limited.
Yeah, I feel like if something happens with LG, it'll be like one person goes, and it feels like they at least want to keep together the gunless John and Formal sort of 3. So I mean, unfortunately, like Slack and Classic, but I don't know. Like I wouldn't expect Luminosity to get rid of the first 3. It's just what's gonna happen with that. That's what I'm saying. Like that team is one that can just stick it out together and just get better. Like the more reps that go in, it's just going into an event, especially when you have this sort of period between your last Pro League match, which you look really good in, and going into an event environment, is that practice going to be there? Is that drive, that dedication going to be there? Like we saw what they could do when people started doubting them. Will they be at that same level going into an event? I have absolutely no idea with this team.
Yeah. Should have got JCap. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm going to say. I should have told. No, I'm kidding. Let's go and talk a little bit about Division B, which is obviously going to be coming up for the next 2 weeks. We've got E United, Splice, Team Envy, Enigma 6, 100 Thieves, Heretics, Accelerate, and Denial Esports. Now, Paradox, outside of the top 2, out of looking at that list, is there a team that you can maybe think is the dark horse for this division that could definitely surprise and maybe even have a chance at coming out in that number 1 spot?
I feel like this is an answer that people, I don't know if it's not like crazy. I'm just on the Heretic train.
I was gonna say, I was getting ready to say like take my Vamos, but I didn't want to ruin it if it was someone else.
It's like I wanted to see them qualify for the league, and this even last year, like this team, I just wanted to see them do well over and over again. They're a great team to watch, and they're really good on the sticks as well. So I just can't wait till they're here, man. I want to see them in action.
I mean, I was really surprised by their respawn. Like everyone has always talked about, the international teams. I mean, I think for the longest time, the Australians were known for their search and destroy, the way that they played. Even going back all the way to the champs back in Ghost, everyone was talking about their search and destroy. It's different, and that's kind of been the main quarrel for these international teams. But this team in respawns is disgusting. Like they are super, super talented. So I'm definitely on board with you there. I think that the Vamos train could definitely be taking over here soon. Now, before I let you go, I want to ask you one more thing. I'm a roster guy. I got to talk about some roster changes a little bit. Is there, or at least to a certain extent, right? Out of the players that are available as of this moment, I want to list off a few, and I want you to tell me whether or not we could see maybe 1, 2, or 3, however many you want to list off. Do you think that any of these guys could possibly find a Pro League roster? And I'm going to list off a few names. We have Parasite, Decimate, Attach, Zuma, Pharaoh, GodRx, Dylan, Alex, and Simp, who is out there. Any of those guys maybe stick off the page to you that could possibly be in the Pro League here soon?
First and foremost, Sam should be in the Pro League. The kid is nasty. Like that, I feel like that's just without question. Out of the rest of them, I'm not sure. I feel like something might. I don't know if anything's gonna happen, sort of with the EU teams, like especially like Rec didn't have the best 2 weeks, so
they got Dylan as a sub. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So like, if they end up making a change, then you probably end up getting Dylan in somehow. Rest, I would love to see GodRx end up making a team. Like, even if that's something that ends up happening with EG, especially sort of moving in, sort of evaluating their performance, GodRx would be awesome as well.